let's jump right in. Welcome to this explainer covering the dense, dynamic, and honestly, super consequential morning session of the LCMS 2026 convention on July 20th. If you tried keeping track of the sheer volume of activity that went down before lunch, well, you know it was a lot. We had worship, major policy debates, elections, and deep theological reflections, the whole shebang, packed into just a few short hours. Our goal today is to unpack this source material step by step. We're going to separate the adopted actions from the failed amendments so you get a crystal clear picture of what actually happened and what it means moving forward. To make sense of such a busy morning, here's our agenda. We'll be hitting 6 key areas. 1. The gospel frame. 2. Consent and finance. 3. Pastoral formation. 4. Elections and the convention essay. 5. Life together. And finally, 6. Preserved by the word. Starting with Section 1, a Declaration of Independence. Before any gavels were struck or any votes were cast, the morning started exactly where it should, in worship. Opening with Psalm 30 and the words of Jesus in John 11, specifically, I am the resurrection and the life, this session set a very clear frame. The crucial takeaway here is this: convention governance matters, policy absolutely matters, but Christ alone preserves his church through word and sacrament. The source material really emphasizes that no election or resolution means anything apart from Christ. This declaration of dependence was basically the lens through which the entire morning's business was viewed. Moving on to Section 2, Credentials, Consent, and Finance. Grounded in that truth we just talked about, the Assembly got right into the business of institutional health. First up, the Credentials Report confirmed 951 voting delegates were seated. From there, they tackled the consent calendar. Now, interestingly, delegates pulled items 603 and 902A for further consideration. That happens when an item crosses a 10% threshold for removal. As the briefing notes, pulling an item off consent doesn't automatically guarantee debate, but it definitely creates a real scheduling risk. Ultimately, though, the delegates overwhelmingly adopted the rest of the calendar. We're talking 95.59% of the vote in favor, against just 4.41%. Right after the consent calendar, the Lutheran Church Extension Fund, or LCEF, took the floor. And wow, they revealed some incredible financial strength for the organization, reporting that total assets now surpass $2.1 billion. But LCF isn't just sitting on those assets. They highlighted approximately $1.7 billion in active loans. And this brilliantly illustrates a key ministry strategy. They view congregational property not just as brick and mortar, but as a vital mission frontier. Whether we're talking about housing, schools, community partnerships, or renovation funding, property is being leveraged heavily to serve word and sacrament ministry on the ground. All right, Section 3, the Pastoral Formation Debate. Let's dive into Floor Committee 6. Because the most complex legislative and policy debate of the entire morning was absolutely centered here, revolving around the future of pastoral formation. To start, the convention easily passed Resolution 601A, which reaffirms the centrality of Scripture, biblical languages, and the Lutheran confessions in seminary curriculums. They also gave unanimous consent to 602, encouraging specialized mission training like church planting. Then we saw Resolution 603 pass. That was a resolution giving thanks for pastors. But kind of interestingly, it only passed after a delegate successfully amended it to remove a requirement that the convention stop and sing a hymn right then and there on the floor. But the really intense debate struck when the floor reached Resolution 6-04A dealing with residential pastoral formation. An amendment was brought forward attempting to soften the resolution so that it would only reject exclusively online Master of Divinity and residential alternate route education. Supporters of the amendment wanted to protect hybrid tools and emergency accommodations, while opponents worried that the word exclusively could essentially open the door to programs that were, say, 99% online. Ultimately, that amendment failed, with 29.94% for and 70.06% against. Following that amendment's failure, the main resolution, which firmly reaffirmed traditional residential formation and broadly rejected online MDiv and RAR education, passed with a commanding 75.45% of the vote to 24.55% against. The convention chose a very clear path prioritizing in-person residential community for these specific degrees. However, to address lingering worries that this ban might be a bit too rigid, delegates later voted by nearly 63% to 37% to include the seminary president's clarification directly in the official minutes. This was a crucial safeguard. It ensured that ordinary digital tools, syllabi, emergency remote instruction, and limited technological components are still perfectly permitted within residential formation. This entire debate impartially highlighted a really profound tension in the church right now. On one side, there's an irreplaceable value placed on face-to-face residential pastoral formation. On the other side, there are very real, pressing concerns regarding the cost of education, geographic distance, pastoral vacancies, the unique needs of bivocational ministry, and just the overall desire for innovation. The convention chose clarity on the model, but as the briefing points out, the underlying implementation questions about accessibility for congregations without pastors, those concerns still remain. Continuing this trend of institutional consolidation, Resolution 605A passed with almost 82% of the vote. This resolution reaffirmed Synod-approved pastoral pathways and pushed back against independent pastoral preparation programs. And this actually passed only after both a motion to postpone and a clarifying amendment regarding rostered status failed on the floor. Section 4, Elections and Theological Center. Shifting gears from intense policy debates, the morning moved directly into personnel elections. John W. C.S. was decisively re-elected as Secretary of the Synod with 82.26% of the vote. We also saw 4 members elected to the Board of Directors, Andrew N. Grams with 58.2%, and then 3 others who required a second ballot to secure their margins. Jesse L. Yao Jr. at 52.89%, John W. Edson at 63.77%, and Jan W. Lohmeyer at 63.51%. Now, why do these specific offices matter? Well, the Secretary ensures the theological and procedural integrity of the Synod's records, while the Board of Directors provides the crucial legal and administrative oversight you need to keep the Synod's vast operations running smoothly. Interwoven with all this administrative business was a powerful convention essay by Thomas J. Egger, titled Christ Changes Everything. He brilliantly illustrated how Christ's literal bodily resurrection guarantees our justification and supercharges our baptism, our absolution, and the Lord's Supper. He reminded the delegates that because of the resurrection, our suffering has profound meaning, and our earthly labor in the Lord is never in vain. It was a really vital theological anchor amidst a crazy busy legislative schedule. Section 5, Life Together and Technology. Next up, Committee 4 brought a series of highly impactful Life Together resolutions to the floor, and the delegates acted decisively here, creating massive downstream effects for local ministry. Resolution 405 officially restricted the title chaplain in Synod contexts exclusively to ordained ministers, passing with 95.58%. This clarifies specific roles for schools and specialized chaplaincy ministries. Resolution 404B strengthened oversight of recognized service organizations, passing with about 93% support. But that was only after amendments trying to allow non-LCMS board members and an attempt to change intentionality language to words and actions both failed. This ultimately ensures much tighter alignment for RSOs. The convention also strongly condemned political violence in 407 and formally directed the CTCR to continue its theological work on pressing political and social questions in 408A, providing congregations with some much-needed guidance. And here's something that brilliantly illustrates the Synod's attention to detail, specifically regarding AI policy. Resolution 4-09A addressed artificial intelligence. Before passing it, they demonstrated incredible theological precision by intentionally changing the phrase AI creates to AI generates. Why? Because it acknowledges that true creation belongs to God alone. It's a small word tweak, but literally a massive theological statement about human dignity and technology moving forward. And finally, Section 6, preserved by the Word. So when we step back and look at the totality of Monday morning, this busy session proved to be a huge moment of strong confessional and institutional consolidation for the Synod. They tightened boundaries around pastoral formation, tightened oversight on RSOs, and clarified institutional titles. But the essential question moving forward, as noted by the briefing, is whether this institutional clarity and high accountability will be effectively paired with the accessibility, trust, missionary creativity, and service to congregations needed for the harvest. Boundaries are set for sure, but how will they be implemented on the ground for congregations in need? That is the question to ponder as we look ahead. But as we wrap up this explainer, we absolutely must remember the grounding truth that started the morning. No convention vote saves or preserves the church. Christ crucified and risen preserves his church through his word and sacraments. Christ is risen indeed.